A wholly unsolicited letter from Corvus Dimwalker, Druid of the Dappled Wood, to Hewler Silverfox, Chancellor of the Grey College, City of Greyhawk, found strapped to the back of a stoat in the common room of the women's dormitory. Good Master Silverfox, I am writing to you from the heart of the woods. I have not written to another person in a long time. I hope I can make myself clear and understood. I am writing to you about the rabbits. You must understand how important the rabbits are. The rabbits are a cornerstone of the ecosystem. They are at the base of the food chain and are an important part of transferring the energy of plants into the bodies of larger animals, such as coyotes, wolves, bears, mountain lions, eagles, bobcats, myself, or hawks. Without the rabbits, the system would falter, and we would all end up eating pine cones, and then the wolves would eat us. The rabbits are also spiritually important. They bring to the forest elements of community and swiftness, which are absent in smaller creatures like squirrels, chipmunks, mice, voles, moles, shrews, insects of the various kinds, lemmings, woodchucks, rats, degus, and marmots. The essence of the rabbit brings the forest together. In all your fine courses of education, I implore you, do not forget the rabbits. The rabbits are fundamental. The rabbits must not be overlooked. Should you wish to consult me on this matter, or employ me as a guest lecturer, you may contact your nearest druidic circle. They will know how to reach me. Yours in peace, Corvus Dimwalker, Druid of the Dappled Wood.
In the city of Greyhawk, 5 individuals are united by circumstance. A brewer priest, a haunted swordsman, a living relic, a caustic criminal, and a golem without a past. With the drawing of a single card, their lives have been turned upside down. Welcome to The Chimera, a role-playing adventure podcast. Our campaign this season is called Misplaced. It takes place in the venerable setting of Greyhawk, kind of, and we're playing with a modified version of 4th edition Dungeons & Dragons. I'm Vin LeBate, and I play Goldeneye Drakashi, a Dragonborn rogue. Joining me today are...
I'm Braden Lamb, and I'm playing Balmo, a halfling cleric.
I'm Jeffrey Bard, and I play Sir Simeon, the human sword mage.
I'm Josh Hallbachner, and I play Ashlar, a warforged sorcerer.
I'm Kacey Smith, and I play Latchkey, a shardmind with the dual classes of Battlemind and Scion.
And I'm Kelly Weissman Asprooth Jackson, the Dungeon Master.
Now, let's get started.
All right. When last we left our intrepid band, it was the wee hours of the night, just not too long before dawn, but still pitch black, and something very large and imposing had crawled up out of the sea and was starting to tear a larger hole into the remains of the ship. I believe that Brother Balmo had shouted at it in Supernal, and it had momentarily turned. As this, you can see, by it's shedding a lot of light. It's got 2 large lights on the front of this. I'm going to call it a contraption, and you can see that it's quite a good bit taller than any of you, and vastly wider and longer, and has big metal claws, and seems to be, you would guess, some kind of a construct. It's hard to make out its details because the primary light in the area right now is coming from it, so it's hard to see much of it very well. But I did mention, I believe, that it's colored red and black. It turned momentarily, acknowledging, like, okay, so it heard the shout, it turned, but then it went right back to tearing open the ship. And I think, if I remember correctly, that Sir Simeon was rushing down towards it. Is that right?
Yeah. The goal is to try and pop into the open area and see if I could recover any of the stuff that's still stored on it. Because obviously this guy was supposed to deliver something, and I was under the impression we should probably prevent that from happening, just for spite.
Okay, so that I want to be clear that that's basically diving through where its giant metal pincers are working. Are you understanding the blocking? Okay.
Yes.
That's
I
fine.
feel like I could teleport around in that mess and make it out relatively okay.
Of course, I forgot about the teleporting ability. Never mind. I'm not worried about you.
Question.
Vin. Yes.
So some of us just had a long nap. What's our health situation?
Everyone in the party has completed an extended rest. And at the end of an extended rest, I believe you have both had the opportunity to spend healing surges and you've replenished your healing surges. So I think we're looking at the party being back at starting resource levels right now.
Okay.
Should all have full hit points, full healing surge values. I mean, with a cleric in the party, you're not, even if I'm misremembering when you can spend healing surges in downtime, you can still spend healing surges whenever you want, basically, because the cleric can do that for you.
Cool.
So
if nothing else, Balmo's got a power that allows you to replenish your second wind or something. Yeah.
Second wind is primarily useful in combat, but it's very useful in combat because it basically lets you use. It's sort of like you get a partial rest in the middle of combat when you use your second wind. So everybody should be at starting values here, but you'll notice that I have not set up the map. For combat, and here's the reason why. Combat has to be by mutual consent. There has to be both a willingness to. Somebody has to be an attacker and somebody has to want to defend. And right now, this contraption is not defending. It is doing its own thing. It is not attacking you. It is tearing a hole in the ship. And Sarsimian will find when he goes down to work inside the ship, it's essentially paying no heed to the party. So Sarsimian, when you get down there, it's very bright, as I said, because there's these lights on the front of the device. But once you sort of get inside the ship and that you're getting less direct light at that point, depending on how the contraption is moving at one point or another, which allows you to see the front of it a little bit better. So it is a big metal construct. It's roughly in the shape, very, very roughly in the shape of a lobster. It has a longer body than it is wide. It has two big claws on the front. But at the front where you might have the face of a lobster, there's kind of a bubble of what you assume is glass because it's transparent. And inside of that bubble, there is a figure sitting in a chair with a bunch of levers, metal levers in front of it. And that figure, because remember during the last episode, Latchkey shared with the party the vision of this figure. It's the same. It looks to be the same figure from before, at least one wearing an identical costume, right? It's this silvery armor that is both thick but also kind of cloth-like, kind of soft, with a spherical, unadorned, and visorless gold helmet. And you can see it now at much greater detail than Latchkey was able to. There is detail on the armor. It has some seaming, and there are like grommets around the large neck area where the silver part connects to the golden helmet.
Oh, okay.
And the golden helmet, can you see into it, or it's just opaque?
It's still a bubble.
It's completely shiny. It's mirror level shiny, like the rest of the material is.
Okay, so I can because Latchkey shared this with us, I can make the assumption that A, this thing was watching us, and then B, it made the decision to come take our ship apart.
Yeah, so and while you're in there, I mean, you can see what it's doing. It's basically tearing a large enough hole into the ship that it can take itself inside, and then it's starting to smash open crates and paw around and dig through things. I assume you don't want to be hit by these claws.
No. Obviously not, yeah.
As long as you're taking precautions to not be in the way of them, it's not trying to hit you. But But if you, say, interpose yourself between anything in the ship's hold and it, please let me know.
Okay. It does not appear to have grabbed anything yet. Like, it's looking for something.
It's mostly just smashing and sifting. It has not... There's no evidence that it has found what it's looking for.
Okay. All right. I don't know what to do here.
I think I have a bad plan. Which is that I would like to, and Rakashi definitely takes a very long second to look at this thing while she's deciding whether or not to just walk away from this entire process. But then she sort of sighs and gets to it, and I'd like to try to approach it from the side, if it's lobster shaped, maybe behind the legs, and climb up onto the back of it, and then sort of position myself behind that glass sphere area and activate the brand new function of my rod.
Okay.
One thing I will do, Kelly,
yes,
is if it looks like it's going to take anything, at that point I will intervene directly.
Okay. It's smashing open crates that have. Let's see. The ship was carrying goods for sale that were made in the Flaneus and were going to be sold in Stormreach. So it's actually a lot of woodcraft, and then there's some raw materials. There's a fair amount of grain and some other foodstuffs. A couple of things that seem to be precision glassware. So it's smashing all of this up, and sometimes making a big sort of smashing a bunch of things at once, then sort of digging through them and just sort of making sure. It seems like, based on the behavior of the construct, and it does. I mean, from watching it, you can see it seems like there's a relationship between the figure inside pulling levers and the behavior of the construct. So in some sense, it seems to be the figure seems to be in command of what the construct is doing. It seems like it is looking for something large, because it couldn't be looking for something small or delicate with its approach, right? So large and sturdy of a necessity, just on the basis of the way that it's searching.
Okay.
So Vin, let's resolve your strategy here. Your strategy here is to use the new function of the rod, which we've established from an accidental trial run last time. Turns off light and sound in the area to, as far as you can tell, everybody but you.
Yep.
Okay, you can get on top of this thing. It's a little bit uneven. I mean, it lists, it rolls, but I mean, your character has a good dexterity, right?
Yeah, and I can spider climb.
Oh, you've got the spider climb. Yeah, you don't need to roll with any of the spider climb function. I forgot about that. Yeah, so you can just walk up the side of it. It's it is moving heedless of you, which means that that's not great for being on top of, but it's not a problem for your character. Turn it on, and from Rakashi's point of view, everything dims and it goes. Things do go quiet, but you can still see things. Everybody else, you're blind and deaf again. This is a problem for you, Sarsimian.
Gotcha.
Whoops.
Wow, as far up as the beach?
Let's see. How far does this effect extend? Yes, as far up as the beach. It encompasses the location of all the characters currently.
Oof.
That thing's badass, man. Huh.
Is there any reaction from the pilot?
So, let's see. This is an interesting question. How is the pilot going to react to this? I think, the construct continues to go about its business. It does not respond. It continues to smash, dig, sift.
Mm-hmm.
It is as though it's not affected by either it's not affected by the effect, or it's dependent on senses other than sight and sound.
And the pilot is also unfettered?
So you'd have to sort of like to go for you to get a sense of that. You'd have to like go to the like kind of hang over the front and look into the bubble, right? Like it's not you were on the back of the thing, and this thing to see into the pilot's area, you have to go to the front and kind of look in. I'll allow you to do that. The pilot appears to be pulling levers as normal. Yes, doesn't seem perturbed.
Okay, then I'll turn it back off.
Basically, okay. Everybody can see and hear again.
Sorry.
So up on the beach where y'all had your campfire going, I just want to highlight a few things. I've talked with at least one of the players offline. In general, it seems that, and I think this was a good and sensible plan, which is why I didn't expect otherwise. You've moved your stuff out of the ship already, because the ship was already in danger of flooding, and it's your stuff. So unless anybody specifically thinks they left things on the ship, I just want to establish clearly that like you're sitting on the crates of the stuff that you were coming with. I asked Ash specifically whether the obelisk was still on the ship or not, and I believe the answer is no. So I want to make it clear, whatever it's looking for, it's not going to find anything of yours.
Mm-hmm.
Noted.
I mean, I kind of want to just let it keep looking until it finds what it's looking for, or it doesn't, because I'm curious about that.
Does it seem like there's an obvious, like, release or hatch or way to access the cockpit of this thing?
Let's see. Do you have dark vision or anything else like that? I don't think that Rikashi does.
No.
Yeah, so I want to highlight this is a crummy situation from a sensory point of view. If you're kind of near the thing, you can benefit from its lights, and you can see it at the distance because of the lights. But looking in detail at the construct is actually very difficult because there's no other major light source.
So it smashed its way in through the back of the ship along the water?
No, it sort of came in. It came up into the surf, and like it was like, oh, there's a hole here, and so it expanded the hole. At this point, it's moving into the ship. So then you're gonna you're probably gonna have to move off of the back, just because there's not clearance for you.
Yeah, I'll do that. I'm losing interest in this thing.
I am not. I really want to know what it's looking for. I also want to know what's his face was going to deliver, which I assume those two things are related. What was his name again?
Redigant.
Redigant Weemsmeckle.
Yes, I'm gonna just hop off and sort of withdraw back to the group.
Mm-hmm. So once it's inside, its smash and grab pattern just really expands, and it's clear that it does not care at all about the functionality of this ship. So left unchecked, it's gonna just destroy everything, just so we're clear.
Seems like such a bad idea to let it do that.
I don't know. I mean, at this point, is the ship fixable anyway?
I think we established that barring major magical intervention or a team of capable shipwrights working for an extended period of time, you're not going to be able to fix the ship. There were things on it that might be of benefit to you. I mean, there's a lot of food on the ship and other stuff like that. But it wasn't going to sail again, at least in the short term.
But at the very least, more intact lumber would be good for building
it's
other
like
things.
All the resources we have currently.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think Balmo's going to make his way through the hole there and start looking around. He's got low light vision from his borrowed iron resilience from dwarves, and I think he's going to do a lance of faith. To bathe it with light and give a bonus to Sarsemian's attack should he want to use it.
Okay.
So he hops up, he watches it for a second, and then announces he'll say this toast in Supernal again. Life is beautiful if you look through the right glasses. and then
Nice.
hoists up his stein in its direction. So
Okay.
it's a ranged wisdom versus reflex.
Oh, yeah, it's an attack. Yeah. Okay, you can roll that.
21.
Okay. So I want to be clear about the blocking here, and I think maybe I haven't sufficiently expressed the scale of the situation. This is a gargantuan thing. That's a technical term in the size categories D&D uses. It is really, really big. And despite being very, very large, it moves rather quickly. So up at the front, it's just a flailing and somewhat unpredictable process of the claws moving back and forth in what is very clearly an extremely dangerous way. Sir Simeon's able to keep himself out of the way of that because he can teleport, and it's not trying to hit him specifically, so I'm just sort of saying, okay, all right, he can sort of get away. But anybody who can't teleport should not be anywhere near the front of this thing unless you want to be subject to a bunch of inadvertent attacks, essentially.
Oh, yeah. No, I wasn't going to get up in its face or anything.
No, it's fine. I just want to make sure that we're clear about, like, it's dangerous up at the front. So that roll, the light happens, and it fills the cargo hold of the ship with kind of a neutral white light, very good for seeing by, illuminates it almost like it's day. Nothing else takes place. There's no that hit has like a corollary benefit for an ally, right? You don't get that benefit, Sir Simeon.
Okay.
And there's no evidence
and
that
also,
it did any damage.
And no damage either. Okay.
It is very clear in this light that there is a hatch on the side, kind of like on the right side of the lobster body, if you will. It has a metal wheel on it. The hatch does.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, it's large enough for a humanoid, an average size humanoid, to enter through. Maybe a little. They'd have to squeeze a little bit if you were larger.
Is that a thing I could get onto?
The hatch?
Yeah.
It's not so much onto as in front of, right? It's on the side, not on the top.
Okay.
It's pretty clearly designed to be accessed when the thing is at rest, and it's decidedly not at rest. But you could get over to it and hang on to it by the handle, say. I mean, that's doable. Give me a dexterity check. Or probably, let's say athletics, right? That seems like a credible thing to roll.
Yeah, let's go ahead and try to do that then.
Do you want a little hand with that? I can give you a bonus to your next skill check somewhere. That is the Harmony of Arathis. +2 to your next attack roll or skill or ability check.
Nice.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and take that. I will also spend a minor action to give myself +5 to that roll as well.
Okay. Yeah. Go ahead and roll.
So this is probably kind of a sloshy version of
30.
Ooh, nice.
Oh. Sloshy version of.
Oh, this is probably Bomo probably says a sloshy version of a very common prayer to Arathis.
So, handedly, you can get over to the hatch without a problem and be hanging on to it. And you're certainly good for this round as the thing jostles and moves about. You won't have to worry about
while
falling
that's
off.
happening.
Yep.
Like, I feel like this is a really loud situation.
Oh, yes, it is very loud.
That no one is like, my voice cannot necessarily be heard above the din. But as I get closer, I guess I'm just gonna be yelling like, "Hey, you know what? This isn't necessary at all. We can help you find what it is you're looking for. Please don't destroy all our stuff." And I'll just keep talking as I'm doing that.
Okay.
In case you can hear me.
Sure. So you're hanging onto the hatch. I want to be clear, there's no evidence you can turn the wheel.
Okay.
It doesn't like give when you hang on to it or
try
anything.
to turn it. Okay.
The whole thing seems fixed in place.
That's unfortunate. I'll just start knocking on it real loud or hard.
So we're not in combat time, so we don't have an established turn order or anything, but I'm noticing that Latchkey and Ash haven't given me any actions yet. Are you doing anything? You want to establish what your characters are up to?
I'm probably just hanging back with, I'm forgetting the name, but our
Demertha?
attached human, yeah.
Demertha Awfully, yes.
Yeah, I don't see a lot of practical benefit in aggregating the situation as it currently stands, and somebody should probably stand over the human. So,
yeah, and good that you're there, because Demertha is freaking out. You know, she's tearing her hair, and she's not loud, maybe because it's just so loud already, but sort of silently screaming. She's fallen to her knees. I mean, this looks like the same sort of thing all over again. Another terrifying, bizarre thing came up out of the ocean. So yeah, she's not well.
I'll kneel down and give her a comforting arm.
There.
A cold.
There.
cold
No,
arm.
I can warm it up.
Oh, true.
Definitely, Ash gets to choose what temperature his arm is.
He's definitely learned a little about modulating internal body temperature when dealing with humans.
Latchkey, I think, is going to look over at Ash and say, are you kind of gesturing towards Demertha and then to Ash and kind of back and forth? And, all right with all that?
Mm-hmm.
Then we are going to see if our presence may prevent our comrades' untimely death.
Do try to keep at least one of them alive.
Which color is
Purple.
Latchkey today? Purple.
So
Presently, purple.
yeah. So they're gonna head over to the ship and the creature. The creature's now totally in the ship, or mostly in the ship?
Totally in the ship
Okay.
now. It's now crawled entirely into the ship, which is it's taking up a large amount of the space within the ship.
And there's not a hole from the top, like the deck of the ship, down into the cargo bay. Just
Well, there was a pre-existing like way of accessing the cargo bay from the top of the ship. There's not like a new not a new hole.
well,
Um,
we're gonna take it that way rather than trying to go through the hole. And Latchkey also has teleport, so I think through a series of small jumps. I don't know what far teleport takes you.
Like 3 squares.
The one that Latchkey has is short.
Okay.
But again, we're not in combat time.
Yeah.
So everything is fuzzier intentionally there.
So it's
get precise when we're in combat.
It's sort of a mixture of like sloshing through the water, but also as they're sloshing through the water, they're kind of dissipating and then reforming a little bit further. And so every time they appear, they're continually in the process of just doing the action that would get them to the next step of whatever they're doing. So moving through the water, climbing up onto the ship, going over to the opening and going down into the storage area. But they keep kind of vanishing and reappearing so that everything they're doing is slightly like it takes them less time because part of the action is teleporting and part of the action is walking or moving or whatnot, if that kind of makes sense.
Sure.
So they're gonna come down into the hold and do their best to avoid the gaping claws and see if they can get themselves on top of the lobster thing, like right behind where the bubble is.
Mm-hmm.
And then they are going to try and do a bull strength battle mind attack on the bubble, so like crack it open, which essentially is going to consist of them, once they have their footing well enough, to sort of lifting up their staff and bringing it down really hard on the bubble.
Okay, it's going to take a little bit to do that, so I'm going to address one or two things first before we resolve that, because it's a long move, and you're trying to do it carefully. So, all right. Sarsimian's still hanging on to the outside hatch. No particular move there. And Van Rikashi's sort of gotten out of the way. Is that right?
I think actually, on seeing Latchkey take off, she'll probably follow them.
Okay.
Because the beach scene is a little bit awkward right now. So she'll probably spider climb her way up onto the deck and try and follow her teleporting associate.
Yeah, you have different methods, but they're both good for traversing the specific terrain of this ship that's beached. Okay. That's going to happen. I guess I'll say Ash, Sarsimian, or Balmo. Do you have anything you want to do before I resolve the attack that Latchkey's about to do?
Nope, just banging on the door.
Okay, just banging on the door. Comforting Demertha.
Balmo's going to attempt to communicate once more in Supernal, basically what Sarsimian was saying, that like, please stop, we can help you look for something, whatever it is you might be looking for.
When you repeat that in Supernal, there is the construct stops for a second, and it turns around so that Balmo, as I picture it, is sort of like right at the entrance to the hole in the ship, right?
Yeah.
So it sort of turns around so that it's facing towards Brother Balmo, and a stream of light comes out of the front of the construct, sort of right at the base of that glass bubble. And that stream of light creates a picture in the air that this is an obviously it is magical or otherwise otherworldly effect, but it's also not. It's like sort of a standard one, right? If you're familiar with magic, you're sort of like, oh yeah, right? Creating an illusion, creating an image. That's a pretty common thing. Mm-hmm. But the light forms the image in the air of an obelisk with very distinctive writing. It's black stone. It has several segments. It's...
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen it? Ash has seen it.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Up on the beach, Ash can see this.
Yeah.
Has Ash shown the obelisk to his compatriots?
Not specifically, no.
No, okay.
Assuming it was still packed up in the box when we got it off the ship, he would not have unpacked it further.
No, it definitely was still packed when you got off the ship.
Okay, then yeah, I'm just gonna kind of look up on it and say, I was wondering.
Yeah, Balmo looks over at Ash and in common says, "You know what that is?
I brought it on the ship.
Do you want this thing to have it?"
Probably not.
Uh-huh. And then to the figure in the construct in Supernal, Balmo says, "I have no idea what that is."
Okay. Yeah.
The dice have been summoned.
Braden?
Uh-huh.
So the left claw of the construct swings, after Balmo has spoken in Supernal, swings out and...
To give me a high five?
Hits Brother Balmo. I'm sorry, I need to roll twice and only keep one. I forgot about that, because he does have that effect.
Aha.
Does not matter, still a hit. That claw is probably roughly as vertically wide as Balmo is tall, right? Like it's equivalent to being hit by a car, basically, for him.
Ooh.
It, however, does not. It's not going to do you any damage. It is going to knock you all the way up the beach, probably past where the campfire is.
Without damaging me?
So, it's a little bit cartoonish, but if you look at the stunt system, there's space in it for turning. You can pay out damage. You can reduce the damage of your effect for other things.
Oh.
So if you hit somebody successfully and you don't really want to hurt them, but you did say want to get a push effect, which is what this is, you could reduce your damage down to 0 and then put it all in push. So that's effectively what just happened. You didn't give a pleasing answer. You aren't helpful, so you got knocked the fuck away.
Balmo sits up, shakes some sand out of his hat, and says, "I am apparently okay."
Okay, now let's resolve that attack from Latchkey.
Mm-hmm.
You want to make me a roll?
Yep. Yeah, 14.
Yeah, that is not going to do anything. That's going to be a resounding clunk, non-reaction from the construct. Again, doesn't really seem like they're deeply concerned with what anybody outside of the construct is doing, other than people who talk to it in Supernal, I guess.
So, I've been wandering around on this thing for a little bit.
Yep.
What is it? Is it very metallic?
Yes,
What's the surface
absolutely.
like?
This is basically all metal except for that glass bubble I mentioned. What metal? It's not probably super obvious to you. I don't think your character has a metallurgy background, but
Yeah.
As I said, mostly black and red. Worn, but in good order, I would say. Like, doesn't exactly look brand new. It's not shiny, but it's also not rusted or damaged.
Okay. Rakashi will sort of put her hand on Latchkey's arm and gently push them aside a bit. Say, let me try this, since it seems like this thing is going to be a problem. And she sort of like definitely grips the thing a little bit, and there's an unpleasant digestive sound.
Yeah.
And she just disgorges a stream of acid around the base, like the edge of the glass.
Okay. All right. You want to roll me that attack?
Oof, that's not great. 14.
Yeah. The acid strikes the surface and really just kind of flows cleanly down around the base of the bubble and falls on the wood of the ship. It makes no appreciable impact.
All right, she wipes her mouth off, glances at Latchkey, and is like, "Okay, I'm out of ideas."
Does the hatch have any like hinges or anything like that?
Yeah, it has 2 hinges on the left side.
All right. Well, I'm going to attack those hinges with Larendanjo.
Okay.
I'm going to summon some force around my blade, making it a little bit sharper. I'm using the what is it called? Where is it? I've lost it. It's the sword burst, sword mage attack.
Okay. You can roll it.
27 to hit.
Okay.
And I guess 17 to damage if you want to look at it that way.
The strike
But force.
happens. It lands. It's, again, this resounding thud noise.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem to make an impact, but there is almost simultaneous, like, Lowlands doesn't do anything, and then everybody who's in contact with it, which I believe right now is Rakashi and Latchkey and Sarsimian, you're going to take 17, 20, 33 damage. Electrical.
Wow.
If you have resistance to lightning, it'll have the defense. But the whole thing gets charged with lightning. It is not good.
No, that's
Yikes.
So rarely is lightning beneficial.
So
I am bloodied.
When are you,
I am also bloodied and getting the fuck off of this thing.
is blooded when you're half your HP?
Yeah, half or less.
half or below. Yeah, I think it's enough. I think 33 is enough to bloody any member of the party. If anybody has that many hit points. With Brother Balmo's being tossed aside that dramatically, and then the burst of lightning surrounding the construct and its clear like harm to several members of the party, Demertha has moved from a point of crisis to the decision to flee. So she snakes herself underneath Ash's arm and starts running towards the tree line.
Ooh. Yeah, Balmo's going to intercept unless you want to, Ash.
I'm just looking real quick at whether I have anything particularly beneficial to do about that. No, you're probably faster, so.
Yeah, can I just regular old intercept and just...
What do you want to do? I mean, this is a panicked person running for her life. How do you... Tell me how you intend to intercept her.
Well, first I'm just going to try running after her and yelling, "Hey, stop."
Okay.
But a little bit more like, "Demertha, please stop. You're safer with us."
Okay.
I'm going to
Yeah.
make like a charisma roll on that or something.
Yeah. Yeah, you can give me a charisma check, sure.
Can I give myself a little Harmony of Arathis on that?
I think that applies to anybody's roll, right?
Okay. What's my Okay, charisma.
Is there a persuasion skill in this edition?
Diplomacy.
There's a diplomacy, I think.
And intimidate, I think, would be the two.
Intimidate. Yeah.
Diplomacy. Ooh.
Yeah, you should have
Yeah,
that.
I can do some of that.
Okay, so a diplomacy check, sure. Yeah, this is a diplomat. It's certainly in that area, so you can call it a diplomacy check.
Ooh.
How about a 34?
34 is good. 34 is hard to argue with.
Diplomacy is where I'm a cleric.
Okay. She turns around and stops and apologizes. Father, I'm sorry. I don't know what overcame me. I'm so afraid. I don't want anyone else to be harmed. Look at that terrible machine. What could this? I mean, she's still upset. You haven't removed that, but she stops running and starts talking to you instead.
Mm-hmm. And he's Sobama's just sort of like, I understand. We're all a little afraid, but we're stronger together.
So here's what I'm going to say. In order to keep her calm, you're going to need to keep talking to her.
Sure.
Okay, so that's basically like you need to stay near her and keep using a minor action every turn you want to keep her from running again.
That sounds fair.
All right. Down in the hold, the machine has pretty thoroughly smashed all the crates. It's just a mess down there. There's flour and ale and glass and wood and all sorts of other stuff strewn about. It's clearly not found what it's looking for, so it turns around and, assuming that nobody is putting themselves in the way of it, goes back out essentially the way that it came. And now... So it's coming back out. Ash, where's that obelisk?
So sorry, when you say coming back out, what does that mean?
Coming back out of the ship. So it was inside the hull of the ship, and now it's coming back out through the hole again.
Into the water, or
the hole in the ship is sort of like right at the water line, so it's coming back out into the surf/beach.
okay. But is it okay? Because like it came in at one angle, like out of the water to get to the ship.
Yeah, it came up out of the water.
It's not going back that way. It's angling towards us, towards the camp.
It's more like it's coming out perpendicular to you, right? It came up out of the water, which was definitely the opposite direction of you from the ship, right?
Oh, okay, I see.
Now it's coming out perpendicular. It's just coming out through the hole.
Okay. Yeah, so I think, based on what we previously established, I would have had the crate just at the spot where we made camp. So it's
right.
Probably just one of, I think, several, crates or objects.
Yeah, you got a bunch of boxes of stuff, yeah.
Ash knows which one it is, certainly. It's also probably heavier than any of the other ones.
Mm-hmm.
For the moment, I think Ash is just going to watch, to just kind of be clear about, my I guess, character intentions here. Basically, he's now aware that this thing is probably looking for this obelisk. He doesn't really want to give it up. In as much as it's possible for him, I think he wants to try to observe whether it seems like this thing is sniffing it out or detecting it magically, right? If it does anything that seems to indicate that it is, in terms of how it changes its direction of motion, or just if there's any kind of magical side of that, then I think he will probably want to just split quickly. But failing that, I think he's going to try to not distract it any further.
Why don't you call heads or tails for me, Josh?
Okay, heads.
Okay. The construct comes out of the ship, and it starts actually back towards the water, back the direction that it came. And it's actually partially submerged when it turns around and starts coming up the beach in the direction of the campfire. So in the direction of where Ash and all of the crates are.
Damn it.
Okay, so geography here. We've got this beach. There's the ship.
Yep.
We know that there's some mountainous areas further somewhere, right? I think we established
all the mountainous stuff you can see is to the north and across the water in an area that looks like it's probably other islands.
Right. We established that we can't prove that it's not a big crescent, but it's probably another island.
Yeah.
And looking into, I guess, what would be like the interior from here, like based on where the beach is, if I look the way that takes me is directly away from the water, it just looks like kind of undistinguished jungle, or
Yeah, it's jungle. I mean, you're up so close to it, it's hard to say, right? Like you can see mountains in the distance because you can see the distance. Right. But you're near the tree line, so what you can see is the tops of trees, and there could be more stuff there. But
but that's the only information that we have to go on, basically. It's just that there's a jungle here, and there could be or could not be something beyond it.
Yep.
And so certainly if I was like looking for any kind of hidey hole or anything here, there's nothing indicative of anything like that. I gotta kind of book it into the forest and take my chances.
So yeah, I mean, you've got the forest and you've got the sea. I think that probably one of those is easier for you to navigate than the other. And there's also just running down the beach, I suppose. You could run away that way in either direction, sort of north or south. But yeah, the cardinal options here are north beach, which curves up ahead, so there's some kind of a turn. South beach for a long ways down, west towards that thing and the water, and east into the jungle.
Okay, and so Balmo is near where I am. Everybody else is far away?
Far is generous. This thing is longer, probably, than the distance between you and it.
Okay.
I might have had one last bad idea while you're trying to make a plan.
Don't phrase it that way.
So the thing's been sort of swinging all around. Is Sarsimian still on the side of it? Or did he let go?
Yeah, did anybody move or let go when they got zapped badly?
I did.
I considered letting go, but I think I held on.
Okay.
I feel like Latchkey fell off.
Man.
That's good, because Sarsimian is an object that I can easily spot on the side of it. So, like, because this thing's sort of been turning around a bunch, when I get a good look at Sarsimian and the door, I'm going to try and catch up with him on that spot, probably as it goes by me at some point. And I'm going to take the rod and, like, because the door's on a wheel, just jam it into that wheel and then activate it using the immobility end of it.
Wow.
Okay.
I like that plan. That's a good plan. What are you talking about?
Your goal... so this is it's a wheel on a steel bulkhead, right? I mean, we have a mental image of what this looks like. Your goal in wedging the rod in is to keep it from moving at all, or to keep it from moving in certain directions, right? Because I can see ways you could sort of jam it in there that would be like, well, you can't move forward, but you could maybe figure out you could sidle, or you're trying to, if you jammed it in maybe to a diagonal, you could try at least to get it stuck so it couldn't move at all. What's your goal?
Yeah, I'm trying to get the rod stuck in the wheel.
Yep.
And then see what happens when this thing tries to move.
Okay. That's pretty clear. Will you give
Also,
me...
am I allowed to spend a healing surge?
No. You need some type of magical healing effect or the use of your second wind in order to...
What's the use of
that.
second wind? How do I use that?
So it's an action. It would be a standard action. So basically, you'd give up your normal action for that turn. And you can only use it once per...
encounter.
I think day.
And you have to be bloodied, I think, right?
I believe that's right, but you qualify.
I'm definitely bloody.
Yeah, it's, at some point, Balmo has called out as calmly but also as loudly as possible. Friends, join me over here if you need some words of comfort. While he's corralling her over.
When Sarsimian makes the decision to stay on, he also grits his teeth and tries to get a second win, right? He's like, oh my god, that hurt. I can't take another one, but I've got to hold on for the sake of our party. And he used second wind.
Okay. So Sarsimian is holding on for dear life. Then you're jamming the rod into the wheel. Just made the decision to do it. In the process of putting it in. Okay, as you're in the process of you've made the decision to put it in the wheel. As you're in the process of putting it into place, you're focused on the wheel. Sir Simeon is holding on to the wheel. Somebody smacks you on the back of your head.
What? She just sort of turns her head and, looks.
Okay, so when you turn your head, you see that there is a figure in a long traveling cloak. It's got the hood up. It's not obvious. You can't see the face because of the hood. Has a pack and a long staff slung over its back. And a voice that seems... You would describe the voice, I think it's fair, as intentionally nondescript. Says, "How stupid are you? Run." And then goes around to the front of the lobster construct and clearly tries to distract it to make an opening for you to do so.
Yeah, I take the rod. I sort of tap Sir Simeon with it and just say, "I do not need to be told twice in this scenario," and I book it towards Balmo.
I'm assuming I heard this too. This wasn't just for a caution.
Yeah, no, it's that's not a hallucination or anything.
Yeah.
That is a thing that is happening in space and time.
While they're booking it towards Balmo,
you were actually looking down the beach, right, Josh? You would have seen what was happening.
Yes.
Yes. Oh, so that person just appeared. Just a figure just appeared in space. Like the moment before that happened, there was no one there, and then suddenly there was someone there.
Okay, so I want to be very clear on this. So this is like a pop-in teleport effect. There's no magical zigzaggies or portal from the abyss or anything like that. There's
no magical zigzaggies. There's no... Just suddenly there.
Okay. And he's still there.
Still there.
Okay. I've seen that, but it's not noticeably going to change my behavior at this point. So I'm going to grab the crate with the obelisk, and I'm going to start running towards the jungle, and I'll wave to Balmo, basically, to kind of try to get his attention and indicate for him to follow.
Okay.
I'm assuming that you can, drag someone along.
Yeah, a hasty but comforting jog.
Let's go this way for no particular reason.
I feel like checking out the flowers on this island. Do you?
In the dark.
So Simeon and Rikashi are moving that direction. Ash is moving that direction. Balmo's moving that direction. What's Latchkey doing?
So Latchkey has just fallen off the lobster thing and is sort of picking themselves up when this individual appears, which captures their attention because it's got a big staff behind its back and just looks very, wizardy. So they're gonna stay with the figure. So they're gonna stay sort of behind the figures. The figure's trying to distract the lobster, but they're not gonna leave just yet.
Okay, when the figure comes into sight of the front of the lobster, this is something that it cares about, right? It has been really indifferent to any other beings up until this point. But as soon as it comes around the front in sight of the figure inside the glass bubble, the claws immediately start moving aggressively to try and snatch it. And it requires the figure is clearly very dexterous and agile and jumps around and sort of bobs and weaves and makes some rather impressive leaps in order to avoid those claws. But it's an ongoing one very powerful force trying to capture the other, and the other one kind of just barely evading.
Yeah. So Latchy's gonna say, "We require answers. Will you survive this encounter long enough to provide them without assistance?
If you don't hang around like idiots and get yourself killed, sure."
Very well then. And Latchy's gonna teleport.
I like that you had to carefully calibrate the exact correct amount of insulting in that.
Okay, so everybody's running up the beach. Ash is dragging the crate. Demertha is coming along with Balmo, and you're all making it for the tree line, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. you get to the tree line. The construct isn't following because it's busy with the cloaked figure. Get to the tree line. You're getting into the woods and at least out of the immediate line of sight of the creature. Probably at least one, maybe all of you turn back to see what's going on with the figure and are able to see the figure dodge successfully and eventually get struck rather badly to the sand and stop moving.
And it's still like it gets knocked away, or it just sort of drops.
It gets. This is like, I mean, so like I said, the construct is throwing around the equivalent of small cars, right? Like it's swinging around these claws, and when Balmo got hit, Balmo got a lot of air and not a lot of harm, and this seems like the opposite. The figure got crunched into the sand in a very painful and audibly destructive kind of way. Like you can hear bones snapping, even this far up the beach. There's a moment where the construct brings its claws around again and is about to sort of grab hold of the figure with both of them, and a very pained voice, not the same as the one that it was speaking in before, but still clearly coming from that hooded figure. I mean, it's not ambiguous where the voice is coming from. A very pained voice says, "Run, you numbskulls." And then the figure disappears.
Still running.
Yep.
Haven't stopped.
Okay.
As soon as Sarsamian's in range, Balmo's gonna, I think I can still use a move action to keep running, but then two minor actions. The Wenta's refreshment to renew your second wind, and a healing word. So you get back. So you spend a healing surge, and get back
1/4.
How many did we figure that was? Two times here, so 2d6 hit points, and also 3 more, and 2 defense for the encounter, and a free basic attack on the nearest enemy. But
don't do that.
But a basic attack is. Not,
so you said roll 2d6 plus. Braden, it was
yes.
2d6 plus what?
3.
2d6 plus 3. Yeah.
All right, good roll. I'll take that.
Okay.
So then I'm supposed to go back and hit him twice?
No.
Are you sure?
No.
It's a free attack.
So you're running into the jungle. People are moving at their various paces. Are you trying to stay together, or are you just sort of fleeing?
I think staying together is a good plan.
Yes, together, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, look at you. Like a heartwarming adventuring party. Okay. It's a little slow going because you're making your way through a forest. One of you is dragging a heavy crate. And there's also a civilian along with you she's not particularly slow, but not especially fast or used to fleeing from giant mechanical constructs. There's, assuming that you want to get away, that's the decision you are taking here. It sounds like you are. There is the thing does give chase, and eventually you can hear in the background that it's reached the tree line because you can hear the sound of trees snapping, as it's way, way too large to move between the trees, so it has to knock them down and out of the way in order to follow. But that's very slow going. That slows it down a lot. So as long as you just keep moving, eventually the noise of trees snapping behind you will fade and stop, or at least you'll be far enough away that you can't hear it anymore, and have at least some confidence that you're not in danger of the thing catching up to you anytime soon.
So, Ash, tell me, how important is this pointy rock?
You have a rock? Sorry, there's a rock in here?
No, I think he said rod.
No, this is a rod.
I thought he was talking about that. You didn't say... I thought you said rod, not rock.
Oh no, pointy rock.
Pointy rod, just like I thought.
Well, this one's blunt.
Ash is going to let this conversation go until it resolves itself naturally.
Yeah, Rakashi's not going to let him do that. She sort of turns around and like pokes him in the chest. Is this all about something that you have in a box?
Hold on. He'll lean over and he's going to look to each side, just kind of like double check that this is like a safe environment to do this as far as he can tell in any obvious fashion. And then basically just wrench open one side of the box.
So inside the box, there is an obelisk, which matches very closely the image that was projected earlier by the construct. And as a reminder, again, this is a black stone obelisk. It has... Oh, I should have had this open. It has, I believe, 5 segments. It's covered in a combination of different scripts, but mostly Draconic, and a text that moves and shivers and shakes that sort of it looks like the letters of that moving text have been kind of caged by the letters of the Draconic text. And those letters aren't just carved into the stone, they actually glow with a scintillating prismatic light from within the stone.
So I think Latchkey can read those letters.
Yeah, I mean, between the party members,
But hang on.
you've got... Right, because Latchkey speaks deep speech, right?
Yeah, but not right now.
Yes, right. It's assigned to one of the personalities, and it's not the personality that's in control.
Yeah. So, so they're gonna look at that and squint slightly. What is this, Ash?
I was bringing it back home. Now, I just need to kind of quickly refresh. I remember I was supposed to bring this back. This was connected to the plot line about the Great Forge. Is that what it's called?
Yes, or just the Forge.
The Forge.
Great Forge.
And was there a thing about not touching it? Or was that just me being magically paranoid?
That was just you being magically paranoid,
Okay.
although I'm not discouraging you from your magical paranoia.
Yeah, but I wanted to... If there was something established about why that was bad, I wanted to make sure I remember that. Okay.
Nothing was established, no. Because no one touched it.
Okay, so I say I was bringing it home.
We know about this story, or don't we?
Mm-mm. I don't think so.
I'm not sure if the flashback was something that was being told to us, or...
Unless you've explicitly shared information from your flashbacks,
Okay.
it's not something that's...
Gotcha.
Yeah, I definitely
shared.
would not have shared anything about the specific reasoning why I was coming home or the fact that I was transporting this. I'll say something here. I think about I was bringing this back home. I'd spoken to someone I previously known, and there's a possibility that this is related to the Forge that my people have a great deal of interest in. And so I guess it's possible that somebody else would be familiar with that.
The idea of the Forge. Yeah, maybe Sar Simeon might have heard of it, because it's something that it's not a secret. It's
right.
just like not commonly talked about.
Right. That's what I was thinking. Like it's not like hidden knowledge. And I think there's at least a decent chance that Ash would have like mentioned it or referred to it in conversation with Latchkey at some point.
Mm-hmm.
But probably not like gone into any like super elaborate amount of detail.
Is it possible that this is the reason that we were all brought to this place?
Well, really, when you look at it, many things are possible.
Based on what was in the journal, I have to assume this is one of the primary reasons. I mean, that thing wasn't going to stop until, or I guess isn't going to stop until he gets it. He's willing to destroy an entire boat. And Latchkey, you said that he was watching us, or it was watching us earlier?
Certainly a figure that looked very similar, if it wasn't the same one, was watching us earlier.
Definitely. I mean, you're the only person who's directly seen both, and you could say with confidence there's no obvious difference between the two figures,
Mhm.
right? It's impossible to say really if they're the same, but there definitely isn't a distinguishing thing that would make you say they're different.
It seems wisest to assume that we are still being pursued.
The sun is just starting to rise now. Morning is just beginning. You can hear the noises in the jungle, animals waking up, birds cawing. And with a little more light, you can see that the very small, what appeared to be a very small clearing that you'd stopped in the middle of, is actually a pathway that's been cut through the jungle. Someone's like hacked aside. They haven't uprooted trees, but they've hacked aside bushes and smaller plants, and maybe even used magic. It seems like there's some fire and other signs of elemental energies involved. But there's a path.
But this is
that you've stumbled onto here.
This is the kind of thing that you'd get if somebody kind of went through with a machete. Again, modulo whatever magic is involved, but that's the kind of path that we're talking about. Not something designed for long-term use. It's something
something necessarily designed for long-term use, but we're not talking about one guy here. This is enough for 3 or 4 adult humanoids to stand abreast.
So like an expedition went by here.
That is definitely, and recently.
Yeah.
This is not old. This is definitely new.
Is the pathway big enough for a metallic lobster to walk down?
Definitely not.
Okay.
It is absolutely too narrow. And it's also running perpendicular to where... So you basically... You ran in and teed with this trail. And it's not really super straight, but it's... I just want to be clear, it's neither going back the way you came from, nor directly away from the way you came from. It's going in a perpendicular angle.
And does this path have... Like, I'm not 100% clear on like what kind of plants there are. So like, does this represent a space where the tree, like the canopy, is broken, or is this just kind of like there's trees and there's underbrush and this is kind of cut through the underbrush?
This is cut through the underbrush. It's not breaking the canopy because it hasn't disturbed the major trees.
Okay. Great.
Yeah, and so just in terms of what kind of jungle we're talking about, we're basically talking about something on the order of the Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
Very large, very tall trees, and then lots of other stuff in between. And places where the trees are densest, actually, you get less stuff.
All right, because of the sunlight.
Well, at the very least, we'll be able to move faster down this trail. We have no place to go anyways. If there are other people, maybe we can help each other out.
Yeah, do any of you guys know anything about camping or trees? Because this is not my element.
I know enough about being out in the wilderness. It would help if we had some of the foodstuffs from the ship, but I suppose without it, we'll have to make do.
What, you guys don't like my campsite, my holy campsite that I make for you every time we go out on adventures? What's wrong with it? Balmo has a ritual that he's prepared, or a ritual in his book, create campsite.
I think this has to be a flashback.
It can
this needs
go
to be a flashback
anywhere,
there.
but it's
Doodly-doo.
Oh, okay.
So, flashback to one previous adventure where some combination of the characters currently on screen have been together. I think we've established that these 5 have never adventured together, but in different sets, several of you have worked together in various jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Brother Balmo pronouncing his ritual, and then tell us what happens, Braden, to draw a word picture for what happens when the ritual takes effect.
A little ring of stones, almost too adorable, around a little chunky, bright brown, almost orange sticks arranged in a little adorable teepee fashion, and a little sort of cigar box, basically full of smoked meats and some herbs and a couple of lime green bedrolls. Usually, always enough for the adventuring party. So who's with Balmo on this particular adventure?
I feel like I already said that I could help out, so I have to assume that Sarsumian did not know this was a thing.
Yeah, Rakashi has never agreed to go on any adventure that involves leaving the city.
And Ash has his previously established level of vague embarrassment about Bomo, so I think that leaves Latchkey. So I'm just imagining with the one bedroll in use and then the other one that Latchkey is just sitting on.
Yeah, pretty much.
Actually, I picture her wearing it wearing it over their shoulders like a blanket.
I like the idea that in this flashback there's somebody who's not on screen now. So let's say that your friend the Dro chef. What's the chef's name?
Oh, right. Darbin Tolric.
Okay, so let's say that in this flashback it's Latchkey and Balmo and Darbin Tolric, and making use of Brother Balmo's ritual summon artisanal campsite.
Yeah, the whole aesthetic of this little arrangement is cute and cartoony, almost twee, basically sort of World of Warcraft, Hearthstone sort of aesthetic. And Darbin Tolric is roasting the innards of some horrible bug beast over the fire. Everyone's covered in gore and cuts and bruises.
Sounds good.
They lost a hireling.
So this is kind of like if Wes Anderson directed the Warcraft movie, is what we're talking about here.
Can that happen, please?
I'm into it.
That's like the only, like, that is the way I want both of those things to happen.
So in this flashback, Latchkey is green and looks over at the campsite and looks at Darbin Tolric roasting bug innards over a fire and says, "We are going to find somewhere to wash off." And just like departs.
Does Latchkey match the bedrolls?
I would say they're less lime, more kryptonite green.
Oh, okay.
Very good. So you're going to follow the trail. Is that the idea?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So following the trail for a while, it's enough time for the sun to come fully up, and you can't really see it through the trees, but you can. The light of day occurs, so you can tell that. And after probably, I'm going to say about 2 hours of walking, there's been the noises of animals around. It seems like the animals in the jungle are relatively wary of large humanoids, and something has already cut its way through this area, so that's probably they're giving it a little bit of a wide berth. Every once in a while, someone catches the gleam of something large and white, possibly another one of those albino owlbears, but nothing that ever gets nearby. And then, as I said, about 2 hours after dawn, there's this rush. You can hear the noise of some. It's like a large group of small animals, small running animals. You hear them before you see them, because the path, although it's fairly wide, is not straight, and so there's sort of like coming around a curve. There's almost a stampede is generous, but like a flood of these little animals. They look a lot like a conventional rabbit. They're all white again, the same chalk white color as the owlbears were, and they look like a conventional rabbit, except that they have little horns on their head. Just like they're short, knobby horns. It's not obvious what they'd be useful for, honestly, from an evolutionary standpoint. But they're coming your way, and they come up towards you. They're not like, they look scared. They're not like attacking, right? So they kind of flood around the party and away, and you can hear some kind of a grunting and maybe the sounds of combat noise up ahead from the direction that they were coming from.
So these rabbit things with the horns, how fast are they moving?
Rabbit
are they moving
speed,
as fast as fast can be?
Sure. Yeah, you're in a part of the forest where, again, the trees weren't obviously disturbed by whoever was cutting a path through the jungle, but there is a stump of a large tree that must have fallen over years ago up ahead of you, because all you can see there is the stump. And coming around the bend, chasing the last stragglers of these little horned bunnies, is a goblin. You all know what goblins look like. I mean, all your characters do, I mean. So, significantly shorter than the height of an average human, probably around or a little bit shorter than Balmo's height. Green skin, very stocky and almost rounded. In adventuring gear, like equipped for some type of travel or military campaign, and carrying a spear, and as I said, chasing these little animals, and stabs one of them with a great look of satisfaction on its face. As it does that, the last of those little bunny things that it was chasing hops up onto the stump. As I mentioned, there was a stump, right? And it perches itself on the stump, and something in the stump comes alive. So it was just a piece of dead wood before, but when this animal sits on top of it and looks back at the goblin, back in the direction of the goblin, the stump uproots itself, its roots moving more like tentacles now than anything else, and a big mouth full of teeth opens up on the front of the stump. The mouth is vertical rather than horizontal, but it's, as I said, it's full of teeth, so that makes it look pretty much like a mouth. And the tentacles start to reach out for the goblin, and a fight is clearly in the offing now, as this stump creature that has in some way incorporates this horned bunny rabbit is now trying to kill this goblin with a spear. That's all happening in front of you. It's not so close that you're necessarily directly involved, but it's close enough that you could get involved if you wanted to.
Well,
Man, I don't even know who to root for in this fight.
this is the fucking worst.
Are these like traditional D&D rules where like all goblins are evil?
That's a good question. My approach, and this is woven into the campaign setting, right? So I'm going to tell you my philosophy, and then also you should expect that your characters have encountered this philosophy in their own lived experience. Mm-hmm. Is that the main reason for evil races, right? Which is, I mean, there's all kinds of things we could say that are problematic about the way that D&D constructs race, and it's all, I mean, it's Tolkien is the first person responsible here.
And our friend Chris Van Dyke wrote a very good essay on race in D&D.
Yes.
You all should look it up.
Google Chris Van Dyke D&D. The issue is that a number of species they were created by gods who are evil, or forces that were evil. That's not their fault, so they all have moral agency. But it is most of the species in the setting prefer to worship the deities that they were actually created by, whether or not they happen to be evil. So in the case of goblins, the religious hierarchy is a little bit complicated, but basically they have a singular deity called Maglubiet, who is actually, at this point, was not a deity, but a primordial. So everybody who's associated with the primordials is sort of considered automatically evil, because the primordials are considered anti the gods, and so therefore bad. And Maglubiet eventually ended up coming under the sway and is now an exarch, so one of the people in the divine hierarchy of the god Bane, who's the god of war. But a goblin doesn't have to worship Maglubiet if they don't want to. So you can't necessarily know, just by seeing what species a character is, if they're evil. You can make an educated guess about like the tendencies of the most societies you encounter. Most communities of goblins tend to have a religious devotion to Maglubiet, and they tend to therefore be evil. But an individual, you can't make that prediction on the basis of it.
Gotcha.
And then it's also a question of like, what do you mean by evil, right? I mean, there is an idea of evil in the campaign setting, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're automatically enemies, depending, right? I mean, like for instance, Rikashi is not deeply concerned. I mean, just by the nature of Rikashi's character, he's not deeply concerned with questions of good and evil. So just because a character happens to have an evil alignment does not mean that she is going to feel justified and interested in killing them.
No, Rakashi will feel justified and interested in that for other reasons.
Sure, yes. But that's not necessarily connected with their alignment.
Yes.
Yeah, as there's a little bit of hesitation among the group, Balmo's going to pipe up. Much as it irks me, I think we can reason or at least barter with a goblin.
So is the goblin actively engaging the tree stump?
Oh, yeah, no, they're in a fight to the death at this point, and the goblin is not probably going to win on its own. The tree stump is about as large and has these big tentacles. It's got a big mouthful of teeth. Its bark seems to be relatively hard. I mean, the spear is stabbing at it and maybe getting some hits in, but it doesn't seem...
Is its bark worse than its bite?
Oh!
That should be
It's completely my fault
right
that I set you up for that.
Yeah.
But, still wince at it. Watching just from a distance for a while, you would guess that the stump is going to win without your intervention.
Rakashi just sort of glances at Ash.
Does anybody look like they're very actively trying to dissuade us from intervening? Or is everybody just kind of like still thinking?
I'm probably like, I think Balmo made me feel bad about it.
That's my job.
By making that comment. And I think Sar Simeon's starting to like resignedly draw his sword and prepare to defend the goblin.
Yeah, Balmo is moving toward the stump.
If Ash sees you guys start to do that, he's going to hold up one finger and say, "Hold on. We are fighting a tree stump after all." Going to summon up a flaming orb and give his best baseball pitch directly at the stump.
Okay, we're going to treat this like a skill check rather than a combat, because it's 5 characters intervening in what is otherwise a combat between 2 creatures. So why don't you roll...
Is that athletics?
What is it? Well, no, I'm actually thinking this is because it's a magical effect. Arcana, right? That's the term. Yeah. Why don't you make an Arcana check for me?
15.
Okay. That is enough to set fire to the nearer half of the animate tree stump horned bunny hybrid thing. The bunny is interesting atop this tree stump. It once it sort of got into place, it became sort of fixed, like it became part of the overall creature, and there was no further movement in the body of the rabbit itself. It's enough to set it on fire, and while that won't end the combat out of hand, that will be enough for the goblin to finally get its spear into the mouth of the thing, push it in deep enough to connect with something, just as it's being strangled by the remaining tendrils. And the stump expires before it's able to kill the goblin. All the goblin is sort of covered in the weight of this now dead thing. The bunny falls over and off of the stump, also apparently dead once that's happened.
I'm gonna walk up to the goblin who's pinned. You said?
Yes, he's pinned.
And I'm gonna say, in goblin, look, if we take this thing off you, are we cool? You're not gonna like stab us or anything, right? Because I have had a day.
Ash will come up slightly behind and cross his arms intimidatingly, but say nothing.
Okay. The goblin is in pain. The goblin's wounded, and definitely looks very unhappy with the situation and not pleased to see these new figures, but nods and says, "If you free me, I will not attack you." Up close, by the way, you can see that there are insignia on the goblin's traveling clothes. It's wearing armor, and there's some insignia on the armor. The armor insignia will be recognizable to at least Sar Simeon and Rakashi, maybe Ash as well. I don't know how well informed about sort of like politics in the Flaneus do you think Ash is, Josh?
Broadly, but with only particular depth on a few idiosyncratic things. Like
Okay.
my guess is that Ash is the kind of person who would want to be able to like talk about political matters to somebody who brings them up. Like, for example, if they've come to his shop in a brief conversation and seem basically knowledgeable and understanding of what's going on, but has probably only dived into anything more detailed, either if it directly affects like him, which means basically local politics in Stormreach or Greyhawk, or there's like something that has come through the shop that is like particularly significant to it.
Okay, I'm going to say that the only person who might not recognize this, and you can just decide for yourself, Casey, I'm not going to tell you one way or the other, is
Sure.
Latchkey. Just as Latchkey is so new to the world and their depth of knowledge on things is so variable.
Yeah, I
But
feel
everybody
like
else is... Oh, go ahead.
I would say I feel like this would not be the personality that would pursue things like political interests and things. So probably
Yeah, I could see a situation where they wouldn't have come across this information. But so for everybody else, the insignia on the armor is pretty obviously clear. It's I'm going to describe it as like a slim equilateral red cross, right? So like a plus sign basically, except that the points the points of the cross end in actual points. They come to a point like a dagger, and they have swirly lines. They're aligned, but they don't just run straight. They curve back and forth several times before reaching their point.
Like a Chris knife?
Yeah, a little bit like a Chris knife. Yes, for those of us who know what that is.
Y'all can Google it. Come on.
I believe that's KRIF.
Yes.
So basically, four points of a compass or 4 points of a cross with a Chris knife, and it's red, and that is immediately recognizable to the people who recognize it. There's not like a half in, half out. This is sort of the equivalent of like seeing a hammer and crescent in New York in 1980. Okay, you know what it means. This is the Scarlet Sign, which is the symbol of the Scarlet Brotherhood, who are either number 1 or number 2 for the most hated and feared civilization in the Flinnaeus. They are notorious for they're Sul supremacists, so they believe in the racial superiority of the Sul branch of the human family. The Sul, remember, are one of the basic types of human beings in this setting, and they're sort of they're like the blondes, redheads, and albinos of the setting. They're Sul supremacists, and they have taken over or have tried to take over several countries in the Flinnaeus in the last several decades. Their region of control is way down at the south of the Flinnaeus in sort of a subtropical isolated peninsula. And they're like, the comparison to hammer and sickle is intentional in that there's like threats of Scarlet Brotherhood spies around every corner. It seems like there's actually a kind of semi-inquisition going on in Greyhawk currently of trying to root out spies for the Scarlet Brotherhood. So that's the symbol that's on this goblin's armor. They're also, by the way, known for using humanoid mercenaries. So it would be in their wheelhouse to have a goblin working for them.
All right, so Rakashi sort of puts her hand on the stump, lifts it a tiny amount, and then stops. Follow-up. You don't have like a bunch of boys out here that are gonna knife us, even though you said you wouldn't. You're very technical about that, so I just want to be clear.
The goblin looks shifty.
Look, man, we're not like part of some sort of expedition or anything. We are lost as shit. We're not here to pick a fight. We are here to not die, and that is about it.
If you like, I could take you back to our camp, introduce you to my masters, see if they can help you find your way home.
They're not immediately going to kill us, though, are they?
So Oh, okay. I was like, well, what's going to happen when I roll this die? Because there's a lot of different outcomes where I can't really resolve them. But when a NPC rolls a natural 1, I know what happens. So, no, they won't kill you right away. Not at all. They'll be very friendly. Where the Scarlet Brotherhood is notorious. This guy is badly failing at lying to you.
Somebody grab a length of rope, please. That's it this week for the Chimera. Our theme music is Hoof, Heart, and Hiss by Matt Weber. You can find a link to more of Matt's work in the show notes. You can also find us online at thechimera.space or on Twitter and Facebook at ChimeraPod. If you enjoy the show, please consider leaving us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or just telling your friends. Join us back here in 2 weeks for the next episode, and thanks for listening.
Okay.
So, welcome once again to Balmo's
wait.
Beer Corner. This episode's cider, really?
I gotta go get mine. Hold on.
Oops.
Okay. So, Vin, are you gluten-free?
Yes.
Okay. Was that a discovery, or has it been a thing for a while?
Okay.
It was a discovery after I had pneumonia at one point, and
Wow.
is possibly based on having had to have intense antibiotics. Is sort of the going theory.
Oh, so maybe that messed with your internal flora or
Microbiome.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So fun changes.
Yeah. Yeah, Shelley similarly, just after discovering the joys of beer, discovered that she could no longer enjoy them. We had one last fling in Brussels.
That's the place for it.
That's a good place to
Yep.
do it. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and that really cemented it for her.
Yeah.
That it is definitely gluten that is doing this.
That was the-
So now we like to explore ciders, and we have an awesome cider place in Salem within walking distance of us. There's a little tap room
Oh, neat.
called Far From the Tree. They do a lot of different ciders. They tend to be dry or semi-dry, and they like to add a lot of interesting things. The one that I'm drinking right now is called Lay, and it
L-A-Y.
has LEI,
Oh,
as in a flower garland, because it has jalapeno and pineapple.
Oh, that
sounds
sounds
nice.
so good.
It took them a couple rounds to really dial in the amount of jalapeno. They got it just right. There's just a little bit of warmth now, and a little bit of the jalapeno greenness too.
That's weird.
So it when you pour it, it's green.
Oh no, just greenness, I guess, in terms of flavor. There's a little bit of
Oh,
yeah.
dryness.
It tastes
of it.
green.
Yeah.
gotcha.
It tastes kind of like your shirt.
Yes. The Sounders green. Yeah. So what are you guys drinking?
I've got a Coronado Brewing Company Guava Islander, which isn't a cider for real. It's actually a tropical IPA, but it's the fruitiest thing I could find on short notice. I've been a really big fan because IPAs for me tend to be extraordinarily hoppy, and for whatever reason they just keep doubling down on the hops. But this kind of new trend of having like kind of sweeter flavors to kind of help tamp it down, I've been a huge fan of. And guava is a flavor I have yet to see, or I haven't seen. I see a lot of citrus stuff, but guava's new.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit fruity, right? But it's enough to really cut the hops, and it's a refreshing drink. It's great on a hot day. So
Oh yeah. Yeah, Lay similarly is a really good outdoors grilling kind of a thing.
Mm.
How about you guys?
So this is a Down East Roasted Joe. I'm showing you guys this in the camera, like you can actually make that out. Which is a cider. It's brewed, or it's aged on coffee and bourbon barrel chips.
That's interesting.
So like the scent of it is like it's got a very like a strong coffee nose, I suppose you would say.
Mm-hmm.
Which is almost like it's coffee enough to be almost a little off-putting, but it's surprisingly beery because it's got that sort of coffee bitterness and sourness.
Like it's almost like a stout.
Yeah. So it's like it's probably the beeriest cider I've ever had.
How is it for tartness?
I would say reasonably tart.
Mm-hmm.
What was the name of it again? I wanna hear that.
It is a Down East Roasted Joe.
Okay.
I've had a couple of Down East that I liked. Most of them I'm not as big on, I think, because they tend to be pretty sweet.
Yeah, this is definitely less sweet and more in the bitter and sour range.
Mm-hmm.
So it's still generated from apples?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm drinking a cider by the brewery is called Rheingeist. It's out of Cincinnati, but when they make ciders, they list it as Cidergeist. And this is their beer called Bubbles, which is a rosé ale.
Whoa.
And it's basically made with apples, peaches, and cranberries, and it's pink, which is kind of fun. And it's sort of semi-sweet. Like I think it's like a little bit tart, a little bit sour, but not beery tasting either. It's just not like as sweet as like a straight up apple cider that like a woodchuck or something.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really liking it, and the color is fun, and I think it's got a really nice flavor. I like Rheingeist. I've gotten a couple beers by them. They have a pretty broad spectrum, but I particularly appreciate that if you go to their website, they have little descriptions of all their beers, and they also list the like alcohol percentage and the IBUs. So if you know that like a certain amount of bitterness is just going to be a deal breaker for you, it's nice to know where all their beers fall.
Oh, that's handy. I also like their Cidergeist logo, which is an apple with little skull eye sockets and a nose socket.
Yep, it's like a skull-shaped apple with a little stem and leaf poking off the head.
Adorable.
It is adorable, and the can itself is pink for bubbles.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, hey.
So,
It's pretty adorable.
yeah. It's kawaii. So I've sort of stumbled across that a few months ago, and I've been enjoying it since. And some of their beers are seasonal, but their ciders, they are all available all year round. So check them out.
Yeah. Well, thanks guys for sharing. That'll do it for another Balmo's Beer Corner or Garden.
Orchard?
Balmo's Beer
Balmo's
location.
Beer Orchard?
Today,
Balmo's
this
Beer Orchard,
time it's
yes.
Orchard, yeah. I think it should be different every time.
That'd be great.
We'll see.
So what do we want to do next week?